I would like to welcome MIke Schultz. MIke is now retired. MIke was the president of West Florida Division. I remember meeting MIke back in the day, 2007, working in a small hospital. I remember you walking in. I was so intimidated by you, and even today I'm intimidated by you. And but what really fascinated me that the small hospital in Zephyr Hills, East Pasco, to 11 and 12 hospitals today, I saw this growth in front of you. I've always been impressed by the way you lead, and I'm grateful that you are coming to talk to me today.
Good, glad to be here. Look forward to it.
Awesome. So, MIke, I want this to be a conversation, and I know that we had many conversations before. I think that the listeners would be very interested to understand that what does leadership in healthcare means to me. Like, when I think about this, what we are dealing with as leaders in healthcare, we're dealing with hope, we are dealing with suffering, we are dealing with uncertainties. And by the end of the day, we are dealing with human lives, whether it is in the boardroom or at bedside. How do you feel? How do you sense that? And then what is the purpose that you find behind to be taking all these challenges in your career?
Well, leadership, whether it's healthcare or not, I mean, it's probably a lot of the same basics involved with that. I mean, in terms of leadership, I 100% believe that leadership is a skill that you acquire. I don't think anybody is born with that. Mm-hmm. I know that as I reflect on my career, you have phases where you start out wanting to be the linchpin. You want everything to revolve around you, making sure that you are noticed, that people appreciate what you're doing, so you can move up the proverbial ladder of management. Once you get to leadership, it has to change because it's bigger than just you. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it involves lives in healthcare, for example. Right. It involves team members being committed to what you're trying to put together. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes bigger than yourself. And if you don't make that change, you become an autocratic leader and you think you can do it all, and people are hoping that you fail as opposed to pitching in with you if you can lead these people in a way that is going to be constructive to what you're trying to put together.
So that's a very important point. I think you use the word autocratic. Sometimes I feel that the psychology of leadership, certain people fall in certain traps. I've seen leaders who got trapped in ego. Some leaders just think about competition, and forget that the person who's across us is not an enemy; it's another human being. Sometimes I've seen leaders envy everybody else and forget about their own purpose and goal. At the same time, leadership comes with a sacrifice. It is not all glory. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of days and nights where you are just anxious and uncertain. Tell me, have you gone through some of those things? That are some of the challenges that you have felt. I mean, to me, you don't look like that you have ever gone through uncertainties from where I saw. But I would love to understand your perspective.
Well, again, I think it's a journey because like I said, you have to switch from it being all about you to making sure it's all about what you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm one that believes that you have to bring the team along in your vision, or you end up trying to do everything yourself, which you can't possibly do. And I think that leads to the frustration and the stress in someone's life when you believe the only way an organization can move forward is resting on your shoulders. And I adamantly disagree with that, because there's no way that I can move an organization, big or small, by myself. Once you get into leadership position, you have to bring people along that understand your vision, that were involved in creating that vision, so that they also can have that sense of accountability and responsibility in moving the organization forward. It can't be just about yourself. I agree. I've seen leaders that, and I think you put it in your book very well, self-awareness. Yeah. A leader has to have self-awareness. I call it emotional intelligence. Yeah. You've got to understand how people perceive you and what you're trying to accomplish. Otherwise, you're just satisfying your own ego, and usually that spins disaster.
So Mike, one of the thoughts I have is, I'm big on compassion, not always, maybe not always perceived in a certain way, but at the same time, accountability without compassion, is just tyranny. And then if you have accountability with compassion only, then it just become a sentiment. It does not give you a direction where you want it to be. So how do you, it's a difficult thing to say that how do you balance between the two, because certain decisions that you and I make at times, may seem different. How do you keep your north? How do you keep your purpose in place? Because that is the fundamental driver that some of the good leaders have. So can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's extremely important to understand the purpose. You've got to articulate as well as organize yourself in terms of making sure that purpose is well communicated, and it has to be a purpose that people have been involved in creating as well. Yeah. A lot of people ask me over the course of my career, what is your why? And I don't know. And that's a hard question for me to answer, because I think a lot of people just come up with something because they're supposed to. Yeah. My why in terms of how I got into healthcare was I had a college professor that was an ex-hospital administrator. So all of his examples were healthcare. So at the end of the day, I said, well, I'll put my resume in a healthcare organization and see what happens. I got a job, and I've stayed there ever since. So is that a why? I don't think so. I find my why and my purpose in the various projects that I have to accomplish, whether it's creating a bigger market, whether it's building a hospital in a greenfield location, whether it's causing team engagement strategies to make sure that our initiatives can be brought to fruition through the team. You got to find that true purpose in most of the things that you are trying to create.
Yeah. So one of the things, Mike, as I went on this journey, even for me, in the early years of my life, I didn't really know what direction I was going. I was just put in this pathway, and after many years, I think that began to formulate better for me that maybe the purpose is to make a positive change. Positive change in people's life, positive change in patients' life, do the things the right way. I remember I was having a discussion with somebody, and they asked me, Irfan, why do you want to do this? And I said, because I think for a man, I'm a small man, and a destiny is a big word, right? So but I felt that my destiny could be that maybe I can make some difference in people's life. Some, not all great decisions, but at least moving in the direction that you want to do the right thing for the right reasons. And it took me a while, to figure that part out. That where do I find my purpose? But I think it is important, just like what you said, that as we grow in our careers and our lives, to find that purpose. Otherwise, you're just going blindly. You need to have some direction, some why at some time.
Absolutely.
Another thing is that I feel that there are various kind of leaders. Sometimes I feel that the leaders who are looking for everybody's nod. Unless they get everybody's nod, nothing moves forward. There are certain people who just make decisions in vacuum. Certain leaders just want to make sure that their decisions please everybody. certain leaders who just want to shock everybody with their decisions. And you have seen it all, and I have seen some of them. Talk to me, maybe some examples, something which comes to your mind, and what is a good medium there?
Great question. I would say, first of all, my genesis in my leadership journey has been always that I firmly believe that nothing can get done with any degree of accomplishment without bringing people along for the ride.
True.
And so when I hear about leaders who are making all the decisions all the time, I don't know how they do it. I mean, I don't know how they get anything done. You have got to give people the ability to make decisions and run with them without me or anybody looking over their shoulder. I think that's the difference between, when people say, how do you lead when things are going smoothly, and how do you lead when there's chaos? Right. Well, I think if you have the mindset that you're not going to be able to do it all, and you have people put in the right positions that are doing what they do best, it doesn't make any difference. They're not waiting for a decision from you. They know what they need to do, and they'll accomplish it. Doesn't mean you don't set expectations for what that individual is supposed to be doing, but I firmly believe that you've got to have the right people, and you've got to give them the right ability to do what they do best, because they most likely can do it better than you can do it.
True. Another thing that I see that some of us struggle, I say the word the 20, 60, and 20. The top 20 are our favorite people, right? We want to connect with them the most. The bottom 20 are the most challenging people. Sometimes they take a lot more time than the top 20. And then you have the middle 60 who just get the job done, right? It is so much easier to work with people that you like.
Isn't that the truth?
Right. But what defines a good leader, how they work with people they don't like, and they still need to get the job done. So that's one component of it. That what has your been philosophy? Because I know that you have worked with people who were great, and then maybe some that they were challenging. So how do you find a balance that you can still have a working relationship and have a disagreement on certain things?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You like to work with people you like. My example of people that I like to work with are people that dream big, people that like to have fun, and people that like to get stuff done. I mean, that intersection of those three things are people I enjoy working with, because they are easy to engage, and they're easily amenable to what you're trying to get accomplished, and easy to talk to because they are trying to get stuff done. Right. That's the main thing. So you like to work with people you like, and there's people in the organization that you don't necessarily like, but you can appreciate what they can accomplish. And that's the way I look at it, is set expectation. People need to know what you expect of them in consultation with them, agree on it, and then turn them loose, whether you like them or not. Yeah. If someone gets the job done, I'm going to like them a lot more.
I think that's a very good point. The other thing, I've seen you, and I try to practice the same thing, that the culture defines the organization, right? And culture, whatever the culture you design, people follow the same culture which the leaders follow. Whatever the culture is in the boardroom is at bedside, right? I mean, people walk exactly the same trajectory, whichever the leaders are going with. How do you continue to invest on culture? And I know you are, one thing that I've always admired you, Mike, that you're a straight shooter. I mean, of course you are very emotionally intelligent, reading the room and all of those things, but you were decisive towards the goals that you always had. So how do you work with with those elements?
I retired right after COVID. And the reason why I point that out, because I think that COVID created this shift in how we do business now. And it caught me at the tail end of my career in 2021 when the inability to meet with people other than through Zoom.
Yeah.
I know organizations where half of their executives don't even live in the same town that their businesses, their market's in.
Right.
So the ability to create a culture, even to be aware of what your culture is, it's difficult. I don't know how you do it. I created a culture by being in rooms with people, strategizing what we wanted to do, how we're going to get things done, understanding what was interested to them, and also setting an example. How do you set an example when you're in a Zoom meeting for an hour and the rest of the time you're out there trying to get stuff done? So the way I did it was you meet with people, you walk the walk, you talk the talk. How you do that now, I don't know. I'm glad I'm retired because I don't know how to create a culture in this new way of doing business anymore.
That's true. That's true. And that human connection, there is the presence, being in presence of someone else rather than electronically on a camera. It takes the human connections out. Because most of the discussions that people have are just words. Words only carry 50%, 60% of the weight. The rest is the presence, is the logos, the ethos, the pathos of a personality. That carries more weight, and the body language, the distance, the pauses between communication. I think that is completely lost on a team meeting and a Zoom meeting, or almost lost. I think that it becomes just a task-oriented. So that brings me to two other things. One is emotional intelligence. I feel that more leaders, all of us, have to be more in tune about emotional intelligence, about reflectively listening, about reading the room. So I've been in meetings where you enter the room with a presentation, and you read the room and say, oh, this is going to bomb. This is not what they're looking for, right? People are presenting with the 35 slides and everybody is yawning. People have no interest, right? So talk to me about, what are the things that you look for? First, emotional intelligence, and then I'm going to connect in leadership in crisis. So I would like to, what are the things, if you have some examples, if you have seen some great examples, and you have seen some not so great examples with emotional intelligence with leadership.
Well, yeah, I can point to certain individuals, which I won't do.
No, we don't want to do that.
But if a leader can't understand the impression he is making on a crowd doing a presentation or a one-on-one with a person sitting in front of him, I don't know how you ever get better.
True.
Because you have no idea how you're coming across, if you're motivating or not, because you don't care. Most of the time, you just don't care. There are some people that just are generally clueless in terms of what's going on, but I think a vast majority of them are people that just really don't care what other people think. Yeah. And they're going to do their thing. Yeah. And I don't think they ever go very far in that mentality, but I think that's part of the problem with leadership today is they don't take the time to really understand how people are taking you and how effective you are in communicating what you're trying to get accomplished.
One thing that I notice, like you mentioned about self-awareness, sometimes we just think too much of ourselves. We don't take a check on exactly, are we really this big or not? Sometimes we think that I'm bigger than the sum. At any height of leadership you start thinking I'm bigger than everybody else. And we forget the power of all of us together. That I was talking to my team recently and I said, you put me in a room in a vacuum, I'm nothing. The only level of recognition I have is all of us together. And sometimes people make that assumption that in vacuum they are high and mighty. And then the flip side of that, what I've seen is when you think you're this high and mighty, when you fall, you have nowhere to land on. Yeah. There is no, there is no softness in your landing. You land really hard. I remember I was talking to a leader many years ago. He's also retired, and one thing he tells me that what defines a man the most when they're defeated. Some of us get angry. Some of us, some of us just freeze, and maybe some of us take a step back and take a look at how and why this happened, and maybe learn from it. And I think, even for me, at times, I have gone through all these three phases at different times, and it is a continuous struggle to learn that, okay, so if I'm defeated in certain thing, if I'm not able to reach a certain goal, am I ready to take a step back and evaluate the situation and then move forward again? Otherwise, I'm just hitting the brick wall again and again and again. Another thing that I see, and I'll go back to the leadership in crisis. I'm a firm believer that in crisis, nobody follows authority. People may follow authority, but they follow more empathy than anything. I saw you lead during COVID. I remember those 4:30 in the morning meetings, the 5:30 in the morning meetings, the number of cases we were having, and dealing with uncertainties. All of us didn't know what the certainties are. I also know that the fiduciary duties that we have, the financial that we have to look at, and then the leadership. Some of them are even scared, even these crises of COVID. So, talk to me some of the challenges first that you saw during that time, and then some of the solutions that you came up with. I would love to explore that more with you.
I read something somewhere in my career of reading that you need to be flexible when you face change. Mm-hmm. You need to be resilient when you face chaos and confusion. Mm. So I think that's always been something that I try to aspire to when we run across a situation where all hell is breaking loose, like COVID, particularly in healthcare. I mean, COVID affected everybody, every business. But with healthcare, we had to not only we had to address the work shortage needs, but also patients were scared to death that this was going to be the kind of the end of life type of thing. So it was something that was certainly chaos and confusion. And again, going back to the resiliency during those times, I think is the key. Because you got to carry on. And again, if you have your organization set up where people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's not quite as chaotic. They do know what they're supposed to do. And certainly there's a difference between the confusion we had during COVID, which was, as you put it, both financial as well as health related. Yep. It was a nightmare. And we chose to go the route of trying to protect the team who was supposed to take care of the patient. As you recall, when meaning the company I worked for at the time, we decided that we were going to not lay off anybody.
Yes,
everybody was laying off people. Because,
I remember that.
I mean, it was just one of those things that people were afraid to go to the emergency room. They didn't want to go to the hospital because this was the worst place to be when you have COVID. And everybody started laying people off. And we made the decision not to lay people off because we felt we needed we needed a competent team to stay with us. And we also wanted them to know our commitment to their livelihoods during this very difficult time for both of them as a patient, potentially, but also as a team member that was being exposed on a daily basis to this unknown thing coming at us.
And another thing, Mike, is well known that during crisis, you really see the true nature of people too. Mm-hmm. I have seen majority of the folks going above and beyond. We were making decisions where we had maybe 50% of the information available.
If that.
When the masks are going to come in, we don't know if the right mask is going to help or not. If the vaccination is going to help or not, how are we going to vaccinate?
Yeah.
As a clinicians, we were not sure if we are going to intubate the patient or not intubate them. Some days we were getting information about giving steroids,
Oh, I know.
the other days not steroids, right? So I think that going back to, I feel that the good leaders use their best judgment, but they don't need to have all the information. But they make the best decision available to them. I think that there are certain leaders, even during that time, who wanted to have everything sorted out. But that doesn't exist in real life.
It does not exist.
And I think that makes a good leader differentiate them from a great leader, how they work. I remember we had I remember that the innovativeness of different things that you were trying to do at that time. I remember at one time we had so many cases that you thought outside the box and maybe put a mobile hospital in an ice rink, right? Put 1,000 people in there and all of those things. So, talk to me about innovativeness. How do you? It is easy to follow a map.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a different kind of a person to think outside the box and think differently, not just in COVID, in life in general, in leadership, that how do you make it more purposeful, and how do you inspire the people around you to think outside the box? I say it not just outside the box, but in an open space.
Yeah.
And it makes you think in a different way rather than the box which has been defined to you.
Yeah.
So how does that work for you?
Well, again, I think it goes back to you just got to be inclusive. I mean, I didn't think of the ice rink. It wasn't me, but it was a great idea, and we went for it. I mean, so it's inclusive. Include people in the process, because there's so much. There's a wealth of knowledge out there beyond this goofy head of mine that I have to take advantage of. So I mean, it's just being inclusive of the people that work around you, because they've got some great ideas that you just got to let them do it,
So, Mike, I'll share this funny story, and this shows how how dumb I could be. Even I remember that we went to the ice rink, and one of the strategists was talking about how we're going to place the patients, where we're going to have the beds, and where we're going to have the pharmacy. And I'm from Karachi. We do not have ice rinks. And I don't know how they operate. I don't ice ski and any of those things. So I'm looking at, and we are in this cold ice rink everywhere, right? And after some time, I asked the strategist that, well, I do have a question about the safety. And she said, what do you mean? I was like, people are going to fall all the time. This ice rink. And she goes, Irfan, we're going to turn this air conditioning, all this thing off. It is not going to be like that. So you were right. I mean, you have to work with smarter people to come up with the right, right structure.
And that goes back, Irfan, to and when you talk about leadership and it being more about yourself. I mean, that's just a typical example of understanding what value people can bring to the equation, and that this whole emotional intelligence thing. Going back to that, during leadership development projects, what's the first thing a developed counselor will do for you?
Yeah.
Do a 360.
Yeah.
I want to know, you want to know what your people are thinking about you.
Right.
You should be knowing that all along.
True.
If you have that ability to understand how people are taking you during the good and the bad times. And it's just one of those things that it's just invaluable in terms of a leader knowing that he has got to be self-aware. He's got to have this emotional intelligence to survive.
Self-correct. Self-correct. So I go through these, phases too. So some days are great. Some days are not that great. Mm-hmm. Some days you make the best decision that you can, and some days you may not make the best decision. But I think that when I don't, or when I think that I could have done differently, I try to pause and think and redirect myself. And it is a tough exercise because our defense mechanisms tell us no, you are fine, you are great, right? But you have to pierce through those defenses and try to self-regulate but I think that's a very important thing, that you have to know what you are really made of, and sometimes what you see in the mirror is not what exactly is true.
That's true.
So I think that it brings you some humility when you hear certain things. I think it goes a long way. Talk to me about control. One thing that I saw, I was always inspired by your leadership. That I didn't see that you wanted to control everything. You let the control be at different levels of leadership. You were not always we were not always wanted to be right. You will give your opinion about certain things and then let the leaders decide what they want to do. I feel that if you are too controlling, you're trying to control something which is not in a solid state. Control itself is very flexible, so you cannot really manage it if you are too autocratic on that. So how does it work? Not trying to dictate control all the way. Does it make you feel less or more? How does that work for you?
Well, in my personal experience, I didn't want control. Because number one, I realized that if I tried to control everything, I would probably be dead by the time I was 50. You just got to get over it. You just gotta hire the right people to make sure that things get done. And yeah, you got to set expectation. That's the fun part of it.
Yeah.
You sit down with somebody, find out what you're trying to get accomplished, and then set the expectation as to how, when, and where. And then let it roll. Yeah. And then, what more do you need to control? You've got an expert there that knows a lot more than you do about this particular situation, or you wouldn't have hired him.
Right.
It's just one of those things where you've got to let go of the reins. You've got to ensure that there is accountability, and making sure that individual knows what is failure and what is success, and how you're going to judge that over the course of time.
Hey, that's true. One of the things I try to do, again, it's a struggle every time, that somebody comes up with an idea and it is not the best of ideas, maybe, but you want to make sure you let them try it, even then that it's probably going to fail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you let them fail.
Yes, you do.
And you learn from that. I have seen you doing that a few times, and I've heard you seeing that you have said this, this is going to fail. I don't have to fix this right now. I want the other person to learn from it.
Yeah.
Well,
that happens all the time. I'm probably not the best at that. If I know something's going to fail, I'm probably going to say something. So, but I also believe that if you're sitting around as a team, and we had a team of 6 major players.
Right.
I don't care if someone comes up with a dumb idea. Someone else in the team's going to knock it down. I don't have to, So let them roll,
Right.
And usually those things get ferreted out in the process of trying to determine what's best for the organization, because you've got smart people sitting around the room, and usually that works out pretty good. Now, are there times when I say, "Hey, we're not going to do this"? Absolutely.
Well, of course.
But
of course.
Usually, if an idea is floated, it gets sorted, and people agree to it or they don't.
Yeah. And I know that when people fail, and failure is at different levels, right? There's some failures which are just not acceptable, and then there's certain things. At the same time, when you disappoint yourself, your own decisions ends in a failure, how do you deal with that?
Man, I get very introspective in terms of understanding exactly how we got to this place. I have the ability to go back and replay the goods and the bads of life, decisions, whatever the case might be. So when failure comes around, I sit down there and figure out what the heck happened. Was it the way I approached it? Was I too lenient with someone who was supposed to take care of the project? I mean, I go through the whole process. Failure is not a bad thing. I've had a lot more failures than successes. Fortunately, I learned from those, and successes are kind of, they fade faster than my failures.
True. True.
I remember those a lot longer than the successes I've had, which is a weird deal.
Yeah, but one thing about one thing that I feel that every time you fail, those times are significantly longer because you ponder over it, you think about it.
Yeah.
The successes feels fast, right? And successes
on.
feels that time is compressed.
Yeah.
Your failure, your time is prolonged, and you ponder over it. But I think it is important to ponder over failures with people, failures with projects, failures with processes, because it makes you grow, right? You see where things went wrong. And sometimes I feel that some of us, do not own the process. We want to deflect. It is your fault. It is that fault, or it is somebody's fault. By the end of the day, we don't say that. Okay, well, I originated this thing, and I think that owning that process, that I'm responsible for that.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable in front of the people that you are with. That hey, this didn't go right.
Yep.
I think that makes you stronger in front of other people than always trying to cover it up, that everything is fine and dandy. And I think that makes us more human than anything else.
Well, going back to your statement that we successes go fast, you're absolutely right. One of the things that I did in most of the positions I held was to take time at the end of a year to celebrate successes. And we'd get all the leadership together in a big room. We'd give out awards for different things that were accomplished during the year, so that people have a sense of, number one, recognizing the good that someone did or an organization did. It's celebrating that, and it's showing the team that you recognize the successes, and those should be remembered as good as the failures that one might have had during the day, during the year. So I made it a point to make sure that we took the time, because it's so easy. 12/31, you've accomplished this, you did budget, you didn't, you grew this much or that much, but then the next strategy comes in. January 1st, you've run off to the next thing you got to accomplish.
Right.
And you just really got to spend some time celebrating some of the successes.
True. I think that is true. And I think that we can even do better. I think sometimes we just do not. Sometimes I struggle, Mike, with a true celebration versus a participation price. Because I also see that the way sometimes our culture is that we just want to give an award for participating.
Yeah.
I always want to make sure that I make a differentiation between the two. Just like sometimes our kids are in a different game, they just go and participate, and they may be horribly playing or they may be playing great, but they just get an award. That's right? Real life does not work like that.
Yeah.
Real life has ebbs and flows. Real life, you don't get just a participation prize.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we do not celebrate the true wins of it, then people don't see an end to anything. There's a continuous grilling, and you don't take a pause to reflect on things.
It doesn't become as important. When success should be pointed out as very important accomplishments.
True, very true, very true. I'll lead to this leading with compassion and accountability. Like I said earlier, there's a fine balance between the two, right? If you are leading with compassion only, then it just becomes a suggestion or a sentiment. And if you are leading without compassion altogether, then it becomes tyranny than anything else. And there needs to be a balance between the two. How do you manage that? I mean, people expectation, your organization structure. I mean, how does that work? And I also know that you were very big on some of the foundational work, which just leads towards the compassionate nature of the organization. So how do you find, as an individual leading with compassion in an organization, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think it's understanding the people that work for you and rewarding when they need to be rewarded, and again, realizing that nothing much can get done unless you have them on your side. I mean, so compassion is it's humanity, it's generosity. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are kind of some of the things that I believe team members are looking for in an organization and a leader. They want to see your humanity. They want to see your generosity. You have the ability to be generous with your team members. I mean, they're working for you,
right?
So I mean, to be generous in a way that rewards them for what they're doing, plus what benefit they're bringing to the organization needs to be rewarded. So, it's just the same. It's just the same theme in terms of what I see is just the ability of being inclusive of the people who are really getting the job done. And that has to be compassionate. But you can also certainly explain to them the goal that is, well, whether it's the corporate office that is expecting, your board of directors what are expecting, they need to know those kind of pressures. If it's rate of return on an investment they're looking for, they need to know that. If it's patient care, that's the most important thing in a corporate mindset. Right. They need to know that, so it's clear as to what your direction and your true north is.
True. One thing that I think about when I say compassion, when I say appreciation, as my brother once told me, I did something and I went to him and I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "Irfan, that's an adjective. Verbs mean more. So show me that you are sorry," right? So I think compassion is also that you need to make an adjective, an active verb, an active work. And compassion could very well be just the kind words that you may have. Compassion could very well be rewarding them in some other way. And compassion sometimes also means that when you lose your mind a little bit, you go back to them and say that, "I'm sorry, I lost my mind a little bit." You're making yourself available out there that I'm also a human being.
Right.
I was not born to be in a CEO suit or the box that has been created for me. I'm outside of that, and I think sometimes having that ownership itself, being vulnerable, making yourself show people that you are as much of a human as anybody else, I think it goes a long way.
And I think compassion creates compassion. If you're compassionate to the people you work for, they're going to be compassionate towards you during those times where you make a mistake or you make an error or you blow up on somebody. That I think it goes both ways when you understand the importance of compassion in the workplace.
And that's another thing that as leaders sometimes, not as leaders, as human beings, we all go through different emotional mindsets, right? And I think that understanding your mindset, understanding that and especially as a leader, that anything which comes out of your mouth, which is out of the ordinary, will have consequences. And restraining yourself, and very very responsible about how you're going to structure your response, not just flow with the emotional state of mind that you're going through. I think that is one of the biggest downfalls I've seen, that people just carried away with their emotions, and then the language, the words that they use sometimes just takes you in a different state altogether.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Accountability.
Yes.
That's a strong word, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we all want to be held accountable, and we all want to hold other people accountable. How do you manage that? How do you, so even for me, I mean, sometimes I feel that I have communicated, the other person doesn't feel that they have received all that information. So I have to check it again and again.
Yeah.
So that's one component to it. But what is in your mind? How do you manage the expectations, and how do you manage when they meet or not meet those expectations or accountabilities?
Well, first of all, I think I was always told, your kids want discipline, whether they realize it
Right.
consciously or not.
Right.
They want it and they need discipline. I think our team members, I know I appreciate the accountability.
Yeah.
Usually it clearly dictates what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So the clearer that can be for me or for anybody, you appreciate that because you know what you have to do. And as a result of that, if you do it, there is a reward of some sort, whether it's praise or a bonus.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, you're clear as to why you didn't do it. And you can make strides to correct that over a course of time. So setting an expectation, giving people the responsibility as well as the accountability is key to making sure that things get done in an orderly fashion, and that you can manage better with those expectations clearly identified in the different people that report directly to you.
Good. Very, very good. I'm going to change gears a little bit. One thing that I observed and saw in the decades that I saw you developing strategies, one thing that always fascinates me, and I think along the same line, that when you are developing a strategy, in my mind, the strategy is just not business; it's also the human component to it. You want to make sure that the safety exists in the strategy that you are working with. But sometimes, there is a price to it. Whatever strategy, there may be some elements who may not, be in line with that. The other part is that the scalability of things, that, I try to build things which I can scale. I build this strategy from the get-go, that how am I going to scale things. And you are a master of that. I would love to start with the scalability part or the strategy. How does your mind work, in those arenas?
Man. Well, strategy is kind of the bridge between vision and operations.
Correct.
It's one of those things that I try to put into everything that is done. I mean, it's just a roadmap for people to clearly get on board with what you're trying to accomplish.
True.
So you don't have to be up there every meeting, every month, trying to direct people to a way that what you want to accomplish. It's a plain and simple roadmap to what you want to get accomplished over a course of time. And it requires input from many. It requires buy-in from many. And the job of the leader is to try to arrange for that to happen in a way that it's not my strategy, but it's a strategy the group came up with. And everybody knows what role they need to play in that particular mode.
I was in a board meeting recently for an IT company, and I was talking with them. One of the downfalls that I see is that we develop a certain strategy, but we have no execution. Or sometimes the strategies are made in a closed room without really understanding the lay of the land, what lies, what are the people involved, what are the factors which makes this work. So I feel that there is always, I feel that there is a strong connection that if it can be executed or not, whatever strategy that you're coming, there is a big gap sometimes between the two.
Yep.
The second thing I see is that there's a disconnect between the operators and then what we decide in a boardroom. Do you see that gap sometimes?
Yeah, I do. I see it a lot. I mentioned, vision, strategy, operations. You need to have all three of those elements. There's a lot of people that are visionaries and strategists. There's a lot of people that are strategists and operators. Very seldom do you see a visionary and an operator be successful.
Yeah.
So my way of visualizing the best way to get strategies accomplished is to make sure you have the right set. You need a strategist that can operate or an operator that can strategize. And that helps tremendously with the actual execution of that particular strategy. If you have a visionary trying to make something operational, it'll never happen. They'll get lost in their clouds of the way things ought to be in a perfect world.
Unimaginable.
Yeah, unimaginable. So it's just getting the right people and making sure that skill set includes the execution of a strategy that can bring it into an operation mode.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big thing that I see in different organizations, that we have we think about a dream, but the realities we are just not aware of, and I think that makes a huge difference.
I was in a meeting once where we're talking vision, and I had some questions about, okay, how are we going to operationalize? Because I'm an operator. I'm an operator and a strategist. I'm not a visionary.
Right.
And I have a hard time thinking about what it might happen tomorrow, let alone 5 years from now.
I really doubt that, but go ahead, please.
But anyway, so I was having some questions about this vision, and one of the leaders of the company that I was with, he says, Mike, sometimes you just have to believe. And I just go, what? What are you talking about? You just have to believe. What about execution, dude? But he was a visionary. He didn't understand operations. Right. So it's just, you just got to believe. Right. Well, it doesn't happen that way, as you know.
I mean, I think that, if a certain realities just doesn't exist or aligned, I can dream whatever I want to dream. It is just not going to happen. Or it is going to end up with too many casualties. And I think that leads to my last question, and I'm big on that we want to achieve certain goals. We want to take a project to a completion, and along the way, certain means can cause an end wherever we want to be. I believe that the means are as important as the end to the goal of where you want it to be. Sometimes I feel that, when you look at certain, financial world, certain corporations, where we don't think about all the casualties are going to be when we reach the end. And sometimes they are casualties, right? How do you balance that?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. I also believe that the way you get there is just as important as getting there and accomplishing something. I can't imagine. I mean, sure, in the perfect world, if you could just snap your fingers and everything would be exactly what you said, great. That's not going to happen. It's going to take a process to get things done. Again, it goes to the humanity, the compassion. How you get stuff done is going to reflect how well you can get it done if you incorporate those elements into the strategy. Right. And that's just something that you just got to believe, because if you don't care about how you get there, then I think that's how you get bad team engagement scores.
Yeah.
I think that's how you get the best people to move out, is because they're not quite comfortable how you're doing things. So that's important. It's absolutely important.
Right, and I've been very blessed with working with you and the rest of the organization. The moral compass. If you have that moral compass, if you understand that the price of this is not worth it, because even if you reach your goal and you look behind and you see the hurt that is caused, then it does not really it is not worth it. I think it's important to have those things in mind.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, Mike, as we're closing to an end, I mean, you have been a phenomenal leader that I personally have followed you, learned from you, and I can say this safely that thousands of people out there have looked up to you, during the course of your career. So all of us are very grateful. We are very grateful that you decide to come on the Fractured but Fearless podcast. Any final words?
No, I appreciate the invitation. I've known you for a long time. Things that you say, I see it reflective in the work you do, the book that you wrote. I'm very proud to know that I know you very well, and things that you've accomplished. I know they're not by accident, and I just appreciate the invitation. I haven't worked this hard in 4 years.
Well, Mike, I'm grateful, and thank you so much for coming to our show. I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Enjoyed it.